The letter arrived at the barracks on a quiet Tuesday morning in June 22-4. It was addressed to the Irish Guards, written in elegant handwriting that every soldier recognized immediately. Inside, Princess Catherine expressed her deepest apologies. She wouldn't be able to take the salute at the colonel's review. The reason was simple, yet devastating. She was fighting for her life. Cancer had come without warning, just months earlier. Kate had gone in for what seemed like routine abdominal surgery. Nothing serious, the palace had said. A planned procedure. She'd be back to her duties soon. But when the doctors opened her up, they found something they hadn't expected. Something that changed everything. The diagnosis came in whispers at first, then in headlines that shook the world. The Princess of Wales had cancer. The woman who had smiled through thousands of public appearances, who had raised 3 beautiful children while serving her country, was now facing the unthinkable. Before we continue with Kate's incredible journey, if you love true stories of courage and hope, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. Kate sat in the hospital room, staring at the white walls. The smell of antiseptic filled her nose. Outside, life continued as normal. People walked by, doctors made their rounds, nurses checked charts. But for Kate, time had stopped. William held her hand. His grip was firm, but she could feel the tremor in his fingers. He was trying to be strong. For her, for their children, for the future of the crown itself. How do I tell them? She whispered. George was only 10. Charlotte, 9. Little Louis had just turned 6. How do you explain to children that their mother has cancer? That she'd lose her hair? That she'd be sick for months? That there's a chance. She couldn't finish that thought. William squeezed her hand tighter. We'll do it together, he said. We've always done everything together. But Kate knew the weight of this wouldn't fall equally. She was the one who would endure the chemotherapy. She was the one who would feel the poison coursing through her veins, killing the cancer but making her feel like she was dying in the process. The night before her first treatment, Kate couldn't sleep. She walked through the quiet halls of their home, looking at photos on the walls. Her wedding day, the births of her children, state dinners, royal tours, a life of service, of duty, of showing up no matter how she felt. Now, she wondered if she'd ever show up again. The royal guard had always been more than ceremonial to Kate. They represented something deeper. Honor, duty, standing. Firm even when everything around you falls apart. She thought of the soldiers who stood for hours in the rain, who never flinched, who protected the crown with their very lives. Could she be that strong? The chemotherapy started on a Monday. Kate had chosen to do it privately, away from cameras, away from the world that watched her every move. Only William knew the full extent of what she was facing. Only he saw her afterwards, pale and shaking, barely able to stand. I can't do this, she said, tears streaming down her face. But somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered back, yes, you can. The weeks that followed were the darkest of Kate's life. The treatment was brutal. Every cell in her body seemed to rebel. Food tasted like metal. Her beautiful hair began to fall out in clumps. The fatigue was unlike anything she'd ever experienced. Yet she kept fighting because 3 children needed their mother. Because a nation needed their future queen. Because somewhere inside her, a fire still burned and she was about to discover she wasn't fighting alone. Asterisk. The response came 3 days after Kate sent her letter to the Irish Guards. It wasn't just a formal acknowledgement. It was something far more powerful. The entire regiment had written back, each soldier adding their own message of support. Some were just a few words. Others were full paragraphs. But every single one carried the same message. We stand with you. Kate read each one through tears. One letter stood out. It was from a young guardsman named James. He'd served for 6 years, standing watch outside palaces, participating in ceremonies, doing his duty without complaint. But his letter revealed something Kate hadn't known. His mother had died of cancer when he was 12. You showed me what strength looks like, he wrote. Now, let us show you. That letter changed something in Kate. She realized she didn't have to carry this burden alone. The same institution she'd served for over a decade was ready to serve her back, not just with words, but with action. The Royal Guard began a quiet tradition. Every morning, before dawn, one guardsman would say a prayer for the princess. They didn't publicize it. They didn't seek recognition. They simply did it because it felt right. Because she was one of them now. A warrior in a different kind of battle. Kate's family became her fortress. William rearranged his entire schedule. Every treatment day, he was there. Holding her hand, reading to her when she was too weak to focus, making terrible jokes that somehow made her smile even when she felt like dying. The children were told the truth, in age-appropriate ways. George understood more than he let on. Kate could see it in his eyes, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. The fear, the love, the desperate hope that his mother would be okay. Charlotte became fiercely protective. She'd bring Kate drawings, flowers from the garden, little notes that said, "You're the strongest mummy in the world." Kay kept every single one in a box by her bed. Louis, too young to fully grasp what cancer meant, simply wanted to be near her. He'd climb into her bed, careful not to hurt her, and tell her about his day. His innocence was a gift Kate treasured. But faith became Kate's anchor in the storm. She'd always been a person of faith. The cancer had tested it in ways she'd never imagined. There were nights when she questioned everything. Why her? Why now? What had she done to deserve this? Yet in those darkest moments, something always pulled her back. A memory of her wedding vows. For better or worse, in sickness and in health, she'd made those promises to William, but they felt bigger now. Promises to her children, to herself. To God, she prayed differently than she had before. Not formal prayers from a book, but raw, honest conversations. Sometimes she was angry. Sometimes she begged. Sometimes she simply sat in silence, too exhausted for words, and slowly, something shifted. Kate began to feel a peace she couldn't explain. Not because the cancer was gone, not because the treatment was easier, but because she realized she was surrounded by love that couldn't be shaken by disease. The turning point came in August. Kate had just finished her 6th round of chemotherapy. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. The scans looked better. The tumors were shrinking, but she was still so weak, so tired of fighting. That morning, William showed her something on his phone. A video had gone viral. It showed the changing of the guard ceremony at Buckingham Palace. But something was different. As the guards marched, one of them had a small purple ribbon pinned inside his uniform. Purple, the color for cancer awareness. Then the camera panned and Kate saw it. Nearly every guardsman wore one. A silent show of solidarity. For her, she watched the video 3 times, crying harder each time. "They haven't forgotten you," William said softly. "Nobody has." Kate realized then what her secret weapon had been all along. It wasn't just faith, though. That was part of it. It wasn't just family, though they'd carried her through hell. It was something bigger. It was love. Unwavering, unconditional. Powerful love from people who refused to let her fight alone. The Royal Guard wasn't just protecting palaces and royalty. They were protecting hope itself. The hope that good people don't have to face darkness by themselves. That duty runs both ways. That when you serve others your whole life, they'll serve you when you need it most. September brought news that made Kate weep with relief. The chemotherapy was working. The cancer was in retreat. Her doctors used the word remission carefully, not wanting to promise too much too soon. But for the first time in months, Kate allowed herself to believe she might actually survive this. She recorded a video message to share with the world. In it, she sat in a garden, sunlight filtering through the trees. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was growing back in soft waves. But her eyes held something new. Strength forged in fire. "The last 9 months have been incredibly tough," she said to the camera. "But I am learning that even in our darkest moments, there is always hope." What she didn't say, what she couldn't put into words, was how that hope had come from the most unexpected places. From soldiers she'd never met. From letters written in barracks, from purple ribbons worn in secret, from a guard that never stopped standing watch, even when she couldn't stand herself. But her journey wasn't over yet, asterisk. October came with golden leaves and cautious optimism. Kate was still recovering, still rebuilding the strength the chemotherapy had stolen. Some days were better than others. Some mornings she woke up feeling almost normal. Other days, the exhaustion hit her like a wave, reminding her that healing isn't linear. But she was alive. And that meant everything. The palace had kept most of her struggle private, but the public knew enough. Cards and letters poured in from around the world. Thousands of them. Children drew pictures. Cancer survivors shared their stories. Complete strangers offered prayers. Kate tried to read as many as she could. Each one reminded her that her battle had never been hers alone. Millions of people fought cancer every day. She was just one of them. But her visibility meant something. Her survival could give others hope. That's when she made a decision that would define her future. "I want to go back," she told William one evening. He looked up from the book he was reading to Charlotte. "Back where?" "To the hospital. To Royal Marsden. I want to thank the people who saved my life." William studied her face. She was serious, and she was ready. The visit was planned in secret. No press, no fanfare. Just Kate, William, and the medical team that had guided her through the darkest valley of her life. When they arrived at the hospital, Kate felt her chest tighten. The smell of the place brought everything back. The fear, the pain, the uncertainty. But it also brought something else, gratitude. The nurses who had administered her chemotherapy cried when they saw her. They'd cared for her with such tenderness, knowing that beneath the title and the crown was simply a scared woman fighting for her life. "You look wonderful," one nurse said, holding Kate's hands. "I'm here because of you," Kate replied. "All of you." They toured the cancer ward together. Kate met patients currently in treatment, sitting in the same chair she'd sat in, receiving the same poison that had saved her life. She held their hands. She listened to their stories. She looked them in the eyes and said the words she'd needed to hear months ago. "You're stronger than you know. And you're not alone." One woman, probably in her 60s, grabbed Kate's hand tight. "I was so scared," she whispered. "But when I heard you were going through this too, I thought, if a princess can fight this, so can I." Kate felt tears streaming down her face. This was why her story mattered. Not because she was royal, but because pain doesn't discriminate. Cancer doesn't care about titles. And hope can be found in the most unlikely places. Before she left, Kate made an announcement that surprised even William. She wanted to become a patron of the hospital. She wanted to use her platform to raise awareness, to fund research, to make sure others had access to the same world-class care that had saved her. "This is my purpose now," she said. "This is what I'm meant to do." November brought another milestone. Kate made her first major public appearance since completing treatment. It was for a charity close to her heart, one focused on early childhood development. She'd always believed that the first 5 years of a child's life were crucial. Now, having faced her own mortality, that belief felt even more urgent. The crowd erupted when she stepped out of the car. She looked radiant. Her hair, though shorter, framed her face beautifully. She wore a dress in a soft purple, a subtle nod to her journey. But it was her smile that captured everyone's attention. It was real, unguarded. The smile of someone who'd been to hell and chosen to come back. In her speech, Kate spoke about love and resilience, about how children need stability and support to thrive, but those listening heard the subtext. She was talking about herself, too, about her own children who'd shown such incredible strength, about the support system that had kept her alive. "The love we receive in our darkest hours shapes who we become," she said. "It certainly shaped me." The applause was deafening. Behind the scenes, the royal guard continued their quiet vigil. They'd never stopped their morning prayers. They'd never stopped wearing their purple ribbons, hidden where only they could see. To them, Kate wasn't just the Princess of Wales. She was a symbol of why they served. She represented everything worth protecting. One guardsman, A man named Marcus, who'd served for 15 years, was asked by a reporter why the guards cared so much about the princess's health. His answer was simple. "She never asked us to care. That's why we do." That statement went viral. It captured something the public understood instinctively. Kate had spent years serving others, never seeking attention for herself, always putting duty first. Now, when she needed support, it came flooding back to her in waves. But December would bring the moment everyone was waiting for. The Christmas season at the palace had always been magical, but this year felt different. Kate was alive to see it, alive to decorate the tree with her children, alive to plan the festivities, alive to hope. The palace released a statement that made headlines around the world. Kate would attend the Christmas service at Sandringham. It would be her first major royal event since beginning treatment. The significance wasn't lost on anyone. Christmas represented hope, rebirth, miracles. Kate's attendance was all of those things. The night before the service, Kate stood in front of her mirror, looking at her reflection. She'd gained back some of the weight she'd lost. Her skin had color again. Her eyes had light. She thought about the woman who'd received the diagnosis 9 months ago. That woman had been terrified, uncertain, barely holding on. This woman, the one looking back at her now, was different. Scarred, yes. Changed, absolutely. But also stronger, more grateful. More aware of what truly mattered, William came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Ready for tomorrow? Kate leaned back against him. Ready for everything. She had no idea how true those words would prove to be. Christmas morning arrived cold and bright. Kate woke early. Before the children, before the staff, before the world knew, she was about to step back into the spotlight. She sat by the window, watching frost patterns form on the glass, thinking about miracles. A year ago, she'd taken her health for granted. She'd rushed from engagement to engagement, always moving, always serving, never stopping to appreciate the simple gift of a body that worked. Now, every breath felt precious. Every moment with her family felt like grace. William found her there, lost in thought. He didn't speak. He simply sat beside her, their shoulders touching. They'd been through so much together, but this had tested them in ways nothing else had. "Thank you," Kate whispered. "For what?" "For never letting me give up. Even when I wanted to." William took her hand. "That was never an option. I need you. The children need you. The world needs you," she smiled. "I think I'm starting to believe that." The royal family gathered for the traditional walk to church. Cameras from around the world had assembled to capture this moment, but Kate barely noticed them. She was focused on putting one foot in front of the other, on showing the world that cancer hadn't won. The crowd outside the church was enormous. People had traveled from all over Britain just to see her, to witness her survival, to celebrate with her. As Kate walked, something extraordinary happened. The crowd began to applaud. Not the polite, reserved clapping typical of royal events, but genuine, heartfelt applause that grew louder and louder. Kate felt her eyes fill with tears. She waved, trying to keep her composure, but the emotion was overwhelming. These people had prayed for her. They'd worried about her. They'd hoped for this moment as much as she had. Inside the church, Kate sat with her family, holding William's hand on one side and George's on the other. The hymns felt more meaningful than ever. The prayers felt personal. And when the vicar spoke about resilience and faith, Kate knew he was speaking directly to her journey. After the service, Kate did something unexpected. Instead of heading straight to the waiting cars, she walked over to the barriers where people stood. She shook hands. She thanked people for their support. She looked them in the eyes and let them see her gratitude. One elderly woman grabbed Kate's hand and wouldn't let go. "You gave me hope," she said, voice shaking. "I was diagnosed 2 months after you. Every time I wanted to quit treatment, I thought about you fighting too. You saved my life." Kate hugged her right there in front of everyone. Protocol forgotten. Duty replaced by humanity. That moment was captured in a photograph that would become iconic. 2 women, both survivors, This embracing and shared understanding of what it takes to fight cancer and win. January 2025. Brought news that felt like a dream. Kate sat in her doctor's office. William beside her, holding her breath as the oncologist reviewed her latest scans. The room was quiet, except for the click of the computer mouse and the hammering of Kate's heart. The doctor looked up and smiled. "You're in remission." Kate heard the words but couldn't process them. "What?" "The cancer is gone. Your scans are clear. You've beaten it." The sound that came out of Kate was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. William pulled her into his arms, both of them crying openly. The months of fear, of pain, of uncertainty had led to this moment. She was cancer-free. The celebration at home was private but profound. The children had been told earlier in the day, and when Kate walked through the door, they rushed at her with hugs so tight she could barely breathe. "Mummy's okay?" Louis asked, his small face serious. "Mummy's okay," Kate confirmed, kissing his forehead. "Mummy's going to be just fine." That night, after the children were asleep, Kate and William sat together in silence. There were no words adequate for what they'd survived. They'd faced the possibility of loss, of raising their children alone, of a future that didn't include each other. But they'd made it through. The Royal Guard learned the news before it was publicly announced. Their commanding officer gathered them together and shared what their colonel-in-chief had achieved. The cheers that erupted were unprofessional, unrestrained, and absolutely genuine. These soldiers, trained to show no emotion, to stand perfectly still, regardless of circumstance, couldn't contain their joy. Their princess had won her battle. The purple ribbons they'd worn in secret for months were finally shown openly. They'd earned that right. They'd stood guard over hope, and hope had prevailed. When the palace officially announced Kate's remission, the response was global. Social media exploded with celebration. News channels covered it as breaking news. Churches held services of thanksgiving. People who'd never met Kate felt personally invested in her survival. Because her story had never been just about her. It had been about everyone fighting cancer. Everyone facing impossible odds. Everyone who needed to believe that sometimes miracles happen. Kate wanted to mark this moment in a meaningful way. She decided to write personally to everyone who'd sent her letters during her treatment. Not just a form letter, actual, personal responses. Her staff thought she was crazy. There were thousands of letters. "I don't care," Kate said firmly. "These people stood with me when I was at my lowest. The least I can do is acknowledge that." It took weeks, but she did it. Every evening, after her royal duties, Kate would sit and write. Her hand cramped. Her eyes grew tired. But she kept going. One letter went to James, the young guardsman who'd written about his mother. Kate thanked him for his service, for his honesty, for showing her what strength looks like. She told him his mother would be proud. Another went to the elderly woman she'd hugged at Christmas. Kate told her to keep fighting, to never give up, to remember that remission is possible. Each letter was a small miracle. A princess, taking time to touch individual lives, the way those lives had touched hers. But Kate knew her journey wasn't truly complete. There was one more thing she needed to do. The idea came to Kate in the middle of the night. She'd been thinking about all the people who'd supported her. The Royal Guard, her family, the medical team, the public. But there was one group she hadn't properly thanked, the one that had started it all. The Irish Guards. Kate began planning something unprecedented. She wanted to attend the next Colonel's Review, not as a spectator, but as their Colonel-in-Chief. The same ceremony she'd missed a year ago while fighting for her life. Her staff had concerns. It would be physically demanding. Hours on her feet. The pressure of performing flawlessly in front of thousands. After everything she'd been through, was she really ready? Kate's answer was simple. "I'm not just ready. I need to do this." Preparation took months. Kate worked with trainers to rebuild her stamina. She practiced standing for long periods. She rehearsed her movements until they were perfect. This wasn't just about showing up. It was about showing she was truly back. William watched her train with a mixture of pride and concern. He'd seen her at her weakest, barely able to walk across a room. Now here she was, pushing herself harder than ever. "Don't overdo it," he'd say gently. "I won't," she'd promise. But they both knew she would. That's who Kate was. All or nothing. The children noticed the change in their mother, too. The spark had returned to her eyes. The energy that had dimmed during treatment was blazing again. George told her she seemed happy, really happy, for the first time in over a year. "I am," Kate said, pulling him close. "I'm grateful for every single day." June 2025 arrived faster than expected, the morning of the Colonel's review. Kate woke with butterflies in her stomach. She dressed carefully in her formal uniform, each button a small victory. A year ago, she'd been too weak to attend. Now, she was leading the ceremony. The Irish Guards had prepared something special, though Kate didn't know it yet. They'd been planning for months, coordinating in secret, making sure every detail was perfect. When Kate arrived at the parade ground, the sight took her breath away. Over 1,000 soldiers stood at attention, their uniforms immaculate, their bearing perfect. But there was something different. Each guardsman wore a purple ribbon, not hidden this time, pinned prominently on their uniforms for everyone to see. Kate's hand flew to her mouth. She'd expected professionalism. She'd expected precision. But this was love. The commanding officer approached and saluted. "Welcome back, ma'am. We've missed you." Kate could barely speak. "I've missed you too. All of you," the ceremony began. Kate took her position, standing tall despite the tremor in her legs. She'd practiced this. She could do this. The guards marched with flawless precision. The music swelled. The crowd watched in awe. But Kate saw something the cameras couldn't capture. She saw the individual faces of the soldiers. She saw James, the young guardsman who'd written to her. She saw Marcus, who told the reporter why they cared. She saw men and women who'd stood guard over her hope when she couldn't stand it all. When it came time for Kate to inspect the troops, she walked slowly down the line. At each soldier, she paused, made eye contact, nodded her thanks. Some of them had tears in their eyes. So did she. This wasn't just a ceremony. It was a reunion, a celebration of survival, a testament to the power of standing together. At the end of the review, tradition called for Kate to simply salute and depart. But she broke protocol. She turned to address the guards directly. "I wrote you a letter last year," she began, her voice carrying across the silent parade ground. "Apologizing for my absence, for not being strong enough to stand with you." Guards remained perfectly still, but Kate could feel their attention. "I was wrong. I was strong enough. Because you taught me what strength really means. Strength isn't fighting alone. It's accepting help. It's leaning on others when you can't stand by yourself." Her voice cracked slightly. "You carried me through the darkest year of my life. You and your families, your prayers, your letters, your purple ribbons. You showed me that a guard doesn't just protect buildings or ceremonies. A guard protects hope." The silence was profound. "So today, I don't just take your salute. I give you mine." Kate saluted the Irish Guards, holding it longer than protocol required. And in a moment that would be talked about for years, every single guardsman saluted back. The crowd erupted in applause. Not just polite clapping, but a standing ovation that lasted minutes. People were crying openly. Even the most stoic observers felt the weight of what they'd witnessed. This was more than a princess returning to duty. This was a woman acknowledging the village that had raised her from the ashes of cancer. This was gratitude made visible. After the ceremony, Kate met privately with the guards. She shook every hand, thanked every person, asked about their families, made sure they knew this wasn't just for show. James, the guardsman who'd lost his mother to cancer, could barely speak when Kate approached him. "You kept your promise," he managed. "You came back." "We both did," Kate said softly. "Your mother through you. Me through all of you." That evening, Kate sat with her family watching the news coverage. The ceremony was the top story everywhere. But the commentary focused less on protocol and more on emotion. The Princess of Wales didn't just attend a ceremony today, one commentator said. She showed the world what victory looks like after cancer. Not just physical survival, but spiritual triumph. Charlotte climbed into Kate's lap. You were so brave today, Mummy. Kate kissed her daughter's head. No, sweetheart. They were brave. I was just lucky enough to have them. Kate knew the truth. Bravery comes in many forms. Sometimes it's standing at attention in the rain. Sometimes it's enduring chemotherapy. Sometimes it's simply choosing to hope when hope seems impossible. And sometimes, bravery is letting others see your gratitude. The months following the Colonel's review brought a new chapter in Kate's life. She wasn't the same woman who'd received the cancer diagnosis. That woman was gone, transformed by pain and triumph into someone stronger, wiser, and more purposeful. Kate threw herself into her charity work with renewed passion. The Royal Foundation Center for Early Childhood became her primary focus. But now, she added cancer awareness and support to her mission. She'd lived through what millions faced every year. She could use that experience to help. In July, Kate launched a new initiative, a support network specifically for young parents diagnosed with cancer. She knew firsthand how terrifying it was to face mortality while raising children. How do you be strong for them while falling apart yourself? How do you prepare them for the possibility of loss while maintaining hope? The program paired newly diagnosed parents with survivors who could mentor them through treatment. Kate personally vetted every mentor, spoke with many of them, made sure they understood the weight of what they were taking on. You're not just giving advice, she told them. You're giving hope. That's sacred. One mentor was a woman named Sarah, a breast cancer survivor who'd been through treatment while her kids were toddlers. She met Kate at a program launch event and was struck by how genuinely the princess listened. She asked about my children by name, Sarah later told reporters. She remembered details from my file. She cared, really cared, about our stories. That attention to detail became Kate's hallmark. She didn't just show up at events. She engaged. She remembered. She followed up. People weren't projects to her. They were fellow survivors, fellow fighters, fellow human beings. William watched his wife's transformation with amazement. The cancer had taken so much from her, but it had also given her something invaluable. Perspective, purpose, a clarity about what mattered. You're unstoppable now, he told her one night. Kate smiled. I was always unstoppable. I just didn't know it yet. The children grew up watching their mother turn tragedy into triumph. George, now older and more aware, understood what his mother had survived. He told her once that she was his hero, not because she was a princess, but because she'd chosen to keep going when everything was hard. Charlotte started volunteering with Kate at hospital visits, bringing her drawings to children undergoing treatment. She'd seen her mother at her weakest and wanted to help others find strength. Even young Louis, still too young to fully understand cancer, knew his mummy had been sick and now helped other sick people. He drew pictures for Kate to take to the hospital, stick figures holding hands with big smiles. The Royal Guard remained a constant in Kate's life. She made it a point to attend as many of their events as possible. Every ceremony, every parade, every celebration, they'd stood by her. She would stand by them. The purple ribbons became an official part of their support for cancer awareness. What had started as a secret show of solidarity was now an annual tradition. Every October Breast Cancer Awareness Month, the Guards wore them proudly. James, the guardsman who'd first written to Kate, was promoted to sergeant. At his promotion ceremony, Kate personally pinned on his new rank. They'd become unlikely friends, bonded by loss and survival. Your mother would be so proud, Kate told him. So would yours, James replied. Kate's parents had been her quiet strength throughout treatment. They'd stayed out of the spotlight, but had been there every day, helping with the children, supporting William, just being present. Now, watching their daughter thrive, they felt a pride that went beyond words. 1 year after her remission announcement, Kate did something bold. She agreed to a documentary about her cancer journey. Not a sanitized royal version. A raw, honest account. The palace advisors were nervous. The royal family didn't do vulnerability. They didn't share struggles. They maintained mystery, distance, dignity, but Kate was firm. People need to see the truth, not the fairy tale. The truth. The documentary included footage from her treatment days that had never been seen. Kate looking gaunt and exhausted, William's worry etched on his face. The children's confusion and fear, the raw reality of cancer. But it also showed the hope. The letters from the Irish Guards, the support from strangers, the prayers of millions. The love that had sustained her through the darkest valley. When the documentary aired, it shattered viewing records. Millions watched Kate's story unfold, crying with her, celebrating with her, finding strength in her vulnerability. The response was overwhelming. Cancer charities reported a surge in donations. Screening appointments skyrocketed. People who'd been ignoring symptoms finally got checked. Lives were saved because Kate had been brave enough to share her truth. One letter stood out among the thousands Kate received afterwards. It was from a teenage girl named Emma, diagnosed with leukemia at 15. She wrote that watching Kate's documentary had given her permission to be scared and strong at the same time. "You showed me I don't have to pretend to be okay," Emma wrote. "That it's okay to cry and fight at the same time. Thank you for being real." Kate framed that letter. She kept it in her office as a reminder of why transparency mattered, why vulnerability was a strength, not a weakness, as 2025 drew to a close. Kate reflected on the year that had changed everything. She'd started it fighting for her life, unsure if she'd see Christmas. She was ending it healthier than ever, more purposeful than ever, more alive than ever. The cancer had been a thief. It had stolen her hair, her strength, her certainty about the future, but it had also been a teacher. It had taught her about grace, about community, about the power of standing together. On New Year's Eve, Kate stood with William watching fireworks over London. The children were tucked in bed, dreaming of the year ahead. The city sparkled below them, full of hope and possibility. "What are you thinking about?" William asked. Kate leaned against him. "I'm thinking about gratitude. For you, for the children, for the guards who prayed for me, for the strangers who sent letters, for the doctors who saved my life, for every single day I get to be here." She paused, watching the sky light up with color. "And I'm thinking about everyone still fighting. Everyone who doesn't know yet if they'll make it. I want them to know what I know now." "What's that?" "That you're never fighting alone. That hope is real. That sometimes when you can't stand on your own, there's a whole guard of people ready to stand for you." The clock struck midnight. A new year. A new beginning. Kate closed her eyes and made a wish, not for herself, but for everyone facing their own battle. May they find their secret weapon. May they discover their royal guard. May they learn what Kate had learned through fire and fear and faith, that love is stronger than cancer. That community is more powerful than disease. That when you let others carry you through the darkness, you emerge into a light brighter than you ever imagined. Kate opened her eyes and smiled. She was the Princess of Wales, a wife, a mother, a cancer survivor, an advocate, a fighter, but most importantly, she was proof that hope, when guarded by love, never dies, and that was a truth worth living for. The fireworks continued to paint the sky, but Kate's mind was already on tomorrow. On the hospitals she'd visit, the letters she'd write, the children she'd encourage, the lives she'd touch. Cancer had tried to write her ending. Instead, it had given her a new beginning, and she was just getting started.